Hey, what it do, baby? It's your boy Mac the Franchise, and let's try a little bit something different this week. With the Cowboys just getting their cheeks clapped on a weekly basis, I just can't bring myself to watch any of their games anymore.
I'm done. I'm not watching anymore. I'm done! Jason Witten didn't unretire for this! Our defense is complete trash! Why do I even watch anymore? Over here letting Trubisky run all over us. Can we go back to have a slow start? At least we're competitive in those games. We used to have pride! Fire Jason Garrett! We used to have discipline! Cut Brett Maher right now! All this talent, we can't beat Trubisky! You're not gonna fire Jason Garrett? Jason Garrett's gonna be back next game? This team has given up on Jason Garrett. Keep playing around, the Redskins gonna win the division. I cannot believe I stayed up to watch this. Nobody to blame but myself.
Let alone any NFL football. I took this week off watching NFL football because, one, my fantasy team made the playoffs, so easy win for me, and also because the Cowboys. So I'm going to do something a little bit different this week. We're going to cover a lot of college ball this weekend, and we'll see how that goes. We start off today with the Big 12 championship between number 6 Oklahoma and number 7 Baylor. With this being a rematch from a thrilling game back in November, many had their eyes on this game. It also had the college football playoff implications with it, with number 5 Utah just completely wetting the bed against Oregon the night before in the Pac-12 championship game, and not many expected number 4 Georgia to beat LSU. So the winner of this game had a pretty solid chance into sliding into the number 4 slot for the playoffs. This game was a battle all throughout the contest. In their last matchup, Baylor jumped out to a huge lead, and then they pulled the Falcons and lost it. But in this game, Oklahoma were the ones who started off fast with 10 points out of the gate. But the Baylor defense caused some turnovers, which has been a problem for Oklahoma because Jalen Hurts has turned the ball over a lot recently. I guess he's been hanging out with Jameis Winston too much. And with those turnovers, they led to short fields for the Baylor offense to score and catch up. And before you knew it, they were leading at halftime, 13-10. And Baylor, mind you, was doing all of this with their backup quarterbacks. Their starter, Charlie Brewer, got knocked out of the game with a very mysterious injury we never really got full clarification of. But both teams are going on scoring streaks throughout the game, and that eventually led to overtime. And that's when the Sooners buckled down and prevailed. Now they have to wait later on in the day for the SEC championship game to see how their fate will be settled. We have the SEC championship game between number 2 LSU versus the number 4 Georgia Bulldogs. LSU had many things to look forward to in the afternoon, like for starters winning the SEC championship game, and obviously they were looking forward to the playoffs. But would they get caught looking too far ahead by Georgia? No, they would not. They actually decided to use Georgia to make a statement to the committee that they deserve to be number 1 in the country, and that they did. They clapped Georgia's cheeks to the tune of 37-10, holding the Bulldogs to only 3 points in 3 quarters. They scored a touchdown late when the game was pretty much over, garbage time points. And Jake Fromm, he did not look too hot. He hasn't looked pretty good this year at all. Heisman hopeful Joe Burrow, he threw all over the field, though. He's looked good. He had 349 yards and 4 tuds all in the air. He also rushed for 41 yards, which is more rushing yards than any Georgia player had. Ooh. With the loss, Georgia falls out of the playoffs, but they still likely get a strong bowl opponent. And LSU, you're in the playoff spot, buddy. Just hold there. If you thought, honestly, that number 3 Virginia had even the slightest shot at overthrowing number 3 Clemson in the ACC championship game, I would have thought that you had a little bit of the bubbly, and I probably would have told you to stop.
Oh, a little bit of the bubbly.
Clemson, they took care of business, and they won their 5th straight ACC title game, which is now a record. Clemson, they racked up 619 yards, and they were leading 31-7 at halftime. So nothing to worry about for these guys, as they're the defending champs, which is also kind of weird because they're number 3. But since they're in the ACC, many people feel like their conference is weak, and that's why even though they're the defending national championships and they haven't lost a game in like almost 2 years, they're still number 3. But many people probably think they deserve to be number 1. In the Big Ten championship game, we had number 1 Ohio State versus number 8 Wisconsin. Man, I know my boys Charles Ena and Sean Slowinski were sweating bullets during this game.
No!
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
Because for the most part, Wisconsin, they looked like they were going to be winning this game. And they were going to pull off the impossible and upset the Buckeyes and throw off the whole playoff picture. Wisconsin was at one point leading with a score of 21-7, but Ohio State buckled down and battled back, and then they won 34-21, which probably let my friends let out a huge sigh of relief, like, whew. This was Ohio State's third straight Big Ten title, and a combo of Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins are a big part of Ohio State's success, and the main reason why they came back to win this game. Fields, he threw for nearly 300 yards and 3 tuds, and Dobbins, he also had a tud with 170 rushing yards. With the win, the Buckeyes punched their ticket to the college football playoffs. And speaking of the playoffs, the top 4 spots are as follows. Number 1, LSU. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Clemson. And number 4, slipping into the spot, is Oklahoma, after Georgia and Utah crapped their pants in their championship games. I'm happy that the BCS is gone because we would be robbed of these great matchups. The BCS was hot garbage. Oklahoma, they play LSU in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, while Clemson, they played Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona. Both of these games take place on December 28th. And at the end of the season, we have the Heisman finalists. This year's group looks to be pretty good. We got LSU's Joe Burrow, Ohio State's Justin Fields and Chase Young, and last but not least, Oklahoma's Jalen Hurts. They're probably going to give it to Burrow, he's on my pick, because I feel like Jalen Hurts, even though he has better numbers overall than the past 2 Heisman winners that were also Oklahoma QBs, I think the committee will think of this as a vote for the system by Lincoln Riley and not really the player. Alright, boys and girls, that's it for this week. We just covered some college football, and we'll see you next time we cover a video. I think we got some UFC fights coming up. We're going to have a lot of the NFL playoff games coming up, and then I'm going to keep you updated with my fantasy team, because I had a bye last week. This week, I actually got to play somebody, and I'll keep you updated. Okay, I'll see you guys later. I'm Batman E. Bombay.